Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to talk about how to do continuous integration with CircleCI along with an example. So first I will briefly discuss what is basically continuous integration. So let's say a scenario where a developer writes a code and this code needs to be eventually deployed, which means it will go into production and whoever is the end user start to use that application. So before that is actually deployed, there is one important thing that needs to be done is to actually check if the code is correct or not. So to make those checks, we write tests. A developer writes tests, and those tests need to pass before this code is accepted into the main branch. Okay, so if we have some automated tool in place which will automatically test the code before it is actually merged to the main branch, then that automation is called continuous integration roughly. So as it means is that any new change to the code base has to integrate well enough with the existing code base. Okay, so there are two things. One is if the new code is working properly or not, and if it integrates properly or not with whatever is existing. So these two things combined, we call it as continuous integration. So as you can see here, when a developer writes a code, there is a continuous integration tool, and that basically runs the automated tests. And if the tests don't pass, then there is no need to go any further. The developer has to make some changes to ensure the code is correct. Whereas if the tests pass, then everything is okay, and then the code can be merged to the main branch, and then the application is ready for deployment. So now I'm going to give you an example as to how to set up continuous integration in the form of automated test whenever you are pushing a code to your GitHub. So here I have a basic Golang package, and I have a function called addition, and I have written its corresponding test, which is done here. So this is the test function, and what I'm testing is basically if the addition function works properly or not. So here I'm calculating the sum of two numbers, and here I'm checking if the sum is expected number. So 4 plus 3 should be 7, and here is checking if 7 is equal to sum. Okay, so and this is something I can simply run go test, and here I see the test is passing locally. So ideally what we want is this test to run automatically, so that so currently we saw this is a manual step where I'm manually testing it, and I'm manually testing just this simple function. I'm not necessarily testing every single possible test that can be done in a code base, and it's better if this is done automatically so that we reduce the manual work involved. And this is where a tool like CircleCI comes into picture. So CircleCI is one of the CI/CD tool, so continuous integration or continuous deployment tool, which can automate things like this. So in this video, I'm going to cover the continuous integration part in the form of automated tests. So currently, this code I'm hosting in GitHub, and here is my code. Okay, so which has my package along with its test. What we want is each time we make any changes to this code base, then the test should run so that we have a clear-cut answer if the code will be integrating, if our change will integrate properly with the existing code base or not. So to do this setting up with CircleCI, first we go to circleci.com and then go to app, and what you can do is log in with GitHub. So what this will do is that it will connect your GitHub account to CircleCI, and if you give the enough permissions, then CircleCI can read your code base of a particular repository in GitHub. And then based on how you set this up, it will run the tests, or it will do the deployment, or do whatever you have whatever you asked it to do. So first I'm going to log in with GitHub, and because I already have logged in before, so it immediately detected my account. And if you go to project section, then you will see all your GitHub repos here. Okay, so in our case, my repository is called CircleCI1. So here I can see CircleCI1, and all I have to do is click on the setup project. And once you set this up, then you have basically given it access to do some automated testing. And the way CircleCI works is that after doing this setup, after making this connection between GitHub and CircleCI, all you have to do is give it a config file. And the config file can look something like this. And I will show you a simplified version of this. And normally you have to put the config file in a folder called .circleci so that CircleCI can automatically detect where to find the config file. So I'm creating a directory called .circleci, and inside this I'll create a file called config.yaml. And here is a very basic config file for a Go code base for CircleCI. Okay, so the first thing you have to mention is version. So currently the version is 2. And then you mention the jobs, which means every time you make some changes to your code base and push it to GitHub, these jobs will run. So here I have one job called build, and then we have to specify the Docker image here. So CircleCI runs in Docker containers, so it basically containerizes your code base and then runs the test or whatever you ask it to run. So here you have to specify a particular Docker image. So in my case, since I'm using Go as my language, so CircleCI has its own Go's packaged image. So this is what I have to specify. And then I'm specifying the working directory, and then I have to specify step. So this is where the actual commands are given. So the first is usually checkout, which means you check out the code base. So you have all the code with you in the container, and then you run. And this run, you give whatever command you want to give. So in my case, I'm simply running all the tests. So go test, then verbose, and then // means it will just run all the tests that is there, all the test files that are there. Okay, so I've done the setting up part in CircleCI by signing in using my GitHub account and then clicking on the setting up part for this project. So now CircleCI knows that it will look for this .circleci folder and a config file inside that, and then simply do whatever it is asked to do inside this file. Okay, so now I'm going to commit. So let's say initial CircleCI config file, and I will push. Okay, so to complete the setting up portion, you need to click on either of these, either add this config, which is the default one which they have given, or simply use an existing config. So now if I click on start building, it will start doing the build. So as you can see, it is running the pipeline now. If I click on it, it is following all the steps. So first is it's preparing the environment, then checking out the code, then it is doing the test. And here you can see the test did not pass, and the reason is that it could not find the package it is looking for. So this package is installed in my local environment, but it is not there in the actual code base. So this is why this test failed. So this is a good feedback I got, right? So just because this code ran properly locally doesn't necessarily mean it is the correct code and it has everything that is needed for it to run in the cloud. So now that I have gotten this feedback, I can go back and basically put this package in the folder so that it doesn't have to look for it somewhere else. So for that I have to do go mod init and then go mod vendor. And what it did is that it created this vendor folder where it has put the package we need. So this assert package it has put in our folder. So now I just have to save it and push it. Okay, so now I have pushed it, and if I go back again, let's say I click on here, you can see the dashboard, project, branch, and workflow. So I'm in the project called CircleCI 1, which is my repository's name, and it's master branch. So if I click on master, I will see it's build. And now here you can see it's already built and it's a success. So if you click on it, click on the build, then you can see this testing is a success. Okay. And this fact you can also see in GitHub as well. So here you can see this tick mark, which basically proves that, which basically signifies that the testing is done. So to summarize, what we did basically is that we have our code base in GitHub, or it can even be GitLab or Bitbucket, wherever you want. And then what we did is we connected it with CircleCI by initially signing in with our GitHub account and then setting it up, setting up the project, and then putting a config file, and that's it. Okay, and once we do that, then each time we push something to the code base, then CircleCI will run the automation script. So whatever job you want it to do automatically, that it will do. So in my case, I simply had a simple test which it runs every time you push something, and this will be particularly helpful if, let's say, we have two developers working. Okay, so let's say developer one basically added this addition function which I just showed you, and let's say developer 2 added a subtraction function with its own tests, but then he by mistake made some changes to the addition function where it no longer works properly. So in such situations, these automated tests will immediately tell us what is going wrong. Okay, so usually we would like to minimize the manual involvement in these cases, because the more manual the task, the more is the probability to make some mistakes. So the more automation we do, the better it is overall to make things smoother and with less mistakes. So just to show the example, let's say somebody else started working on this project, and instead of a plus b, he wrote a minus b. So obviously it will be wrong. And let's say if that person committed, let's say I simply committed it and then did a good git push, then what will happen is if I go here and refresh, you can see here it is running. This is what this dot signifies. You don't even have to go to CircleCI. Here in GitHub itself, you will know very quickly what's going on. Okay, now you can see there is a cross mark here, which shows that there is something wrong. And then you can go to circleci.com to see what's going on. And then you see here, this is the third commit I showed you. If you go to the workflow, and here it shows the test result. So expected is 7 and actually it got 1 because we did 4 minus 3. And now this gives me clue that what I should do to make the code correct. Okay, so this is a brief example of how continuous integration is usually done, and how to set this up in CircleCI and GitHub, and why is it useful for. So later on I can show you how to do more advanced versions of this, so which can include continuous delivery and continuous deployment as well. So once you have made some changes, and you know for sure that it is correct, it passes the tests, then you would also like to automate the process of deploying so that your end users also get these changes automatically without you having to do anything more than simply writing the code. and that I can do in a later video. If anything is unclear and if you have any doubts, then feel free to comment. Thanks. Cheers.